So, Jan, did you ever find yourself at a point in your life where you felt the need to redefine yourself?
Maybe. But that's what we're talking about today in episode 14 of the Rusty and Jan Show.
Hmm. And we have an excellent interview with Marsha Lowe.
And we'll have our moment with George and update you on the events happening around our community.
So, if you're ready, let's get started with the
The
Rusty
Rusty
and
and
Jan
Jan Show!
Show. When the world comes crashing down on us, they're always there, and they're always happy company because they care. Oh, yes, they care. And when you need to take out pain, well, no one else will do. Dial the phone or go on Zoom. Thank God there are friends like you. I said, thank God there are friends like you. Sometimes you find out your path to the future begins with accepting what's happened in your past. This was a song I wrote when I was in the thick of that process.
It's called Failed.
Thought I could change and deny my heart. Thought I could make a brand new start. Thought I could get all the things you'd need. Thought I could be the one you'd see. I guess I failed to win your heart. I never seemed to reach your mark. I did the best that one man could, but I guess I failed. You knew I would. Thought I could forget that dream I felt. Thought I could just grow up and tighten up my belt. Thought I could just win the race for you. But you saw I tripped and fell, that's true. I guess I failed to win your heart. I never seemed to reach your mark. I did the best that one man could, but I guess I failed. We knew I would. You know I tried to make you happy, and I tried to be your man. But we know that I was never that equipped for completion with your plan. I know that you were all I ever wanted, and I did what I was told. But I thought that you could find it in your heart to help me before my dream got old. Guess I should go. Let you start again. Maybe you can find a better friend. I will regroup, pick up pieces of past. I guess I failed to make love last. I guess I failed to win your heart. I never seemed to reach your mark. I did the best that one man could, but I guess I failed. I knew I would. I guess I failed. I knew I would. But you know I did the best I could.
And now it's time for Going Out with Rusty and Jan. Welcome to Going Out with Rusty and Jan. We have an exciting lineup of guests for the upcoming weeks on the Rusty and Jan Show. On May the 10th, we'll talk to Lisa Jeanette about her new album, Jellyfish on the Moon. On May the 17th, we'll feature Joe Adams all the way from sunny California. And then on May the 24th, we'll welcome one of our newer friends, Carrie Rumpf. Rusty, why don't you tell us about the muse of our community?
Well, okay. As you can see, venues are beginning to open up everywhere as more people are becoming vaccinated. Melilani Cafe is continuing to have outdoor performances. We just had a great one with the Ted Jordan Trio. Was wonderful just to be with him and be with our friends. Carrie Rump will perform May 8th from 1 to 4, and then on May 9th, Brianna Coble will take the mic from 2 to 5. So contact Jan if you're interested in scheduling something. As always, make sure you go out and support these artists and have some of George's delicious food. The open mic is going to resume in person again. Yay! On May 13th. And we'll still likely have a virtual component for those who do not live close or are not comfortable coming out yet. We are still working out the details, but it's going to be fun, so stay tuned. We recently learned of an open mic at the Cosmic Cafe. Dan and I just played there last week. It's going to be hosted by Emmett Druding on the first Friday of every month. This Friday, May 7th, will be the first one, and Jan and I are going to check it out. We'll probably tell you about it next week.
Right, and hopefully we'll see you there on Friday.
That would be fun. It's a fantastic place. It's outside, right by the river. It's a great gig, and we love it there, and we love Peg. So sign up starts at 5:30. Music begins at 6.
As previously mentioned, a number of festivals are planned for this season. Just to go over them really quick here, the PFS Spring Thing will be held virtually May 28th through the 30th. Philadelphia Folk Festival will take place from August the 19th through the 22nd. We're still waiting to hear whether or not that will be virtual or in person or some combination of both, and we'll let you know as soon as we have confirmation. X-Fest will take place in person at the Country Creek Winery on September 17th and 18th. PFS Fall Fling will happen in person October 1st through the 3rd with limited attendance in Green Lane, Pennsylvania. And we just learned that Falcon Ridge Folk Festival will have a one-day outdoor hybrid event on July the 31st in Goshen, Connecticut. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that means by hybrid, but we're going to check it out, and more details will come as soon as we receive them.
Yes. Now it's time to see what George is cooking up at the Melilani Cafe. This week it's time for George's Corner.
Hey everybody, and welcome to George's Corner. I'd just like to thank Rusty and Jan for having me on the show this week. We had wonderful music in the garden this weekend. We had Ted Jordan Trio on Saturday, and that went wonderfully. And we had Julia Ott and Tom Cooney on Sunday, and that went really well too. So we're starting to kick off summer session, I would say, of music. This week we have on Saturday at 1 is Carrie Rumpf, and on Sunday at 2 p.m. we have Brianna Cobble, and Jan is going to be announcing when our open mic is going to be starting. And then this week we have Marsha as our guest, and Marsha is definitely part of the Maloney family, and one of the faves. I love Marsha to death, and definitely love seeing her play and her voice and her guitar work, and I love Marsha, and we're friends, and I'm friends with all my musicians, so it's so hard to pick and choose, but every week is great. And last week I missed Morgan. I did make a video, but it was too long, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Morgan too, because she's so amazing, and I love her family, and I miss her family, and just a shout out to Morgan. And I think my message last week was a little more sentimental, but I think we're on to this week. So, all right, well, come check out the music, and then when the open mic starts, and we're gonna have to charge because I have to rent the garden. So, we're gonna have a suggested donation at all our events, but it's just because we have to pay for the location. So, but just a little bit, $5 or $10, it'll help us to get through the summer. All right, thank you. Bye.
And now it's time for Head to Head with Rusty and Jan. Anyhow, so Jan, I think it's safe to say that I did survive my midlife crisis, although many other people may not have survived my midlife crisis very well.
Well, was it really a crisis?
Well, that is the theme for this week. That point you come to when you need to break from your past and redefine your future, which frequently happens around midlife.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think for me it's best described when my musical goals were apparently never going to be achieved with the half-hearted effort I was providing. It became obvious that I needed to get serious, and this happened around the time I turned 40.
Well, as you know, I had a similar experience, but I was much younger. For me, it happened in my late 20s, and that was around the time we met each other, and we realized that we shared the same angst.
I now think I had been following all the rules and had been projected upon me by parents, society, and church, and somehow I was left with that feeling that my life was just not hitting the mark that I needed it to. And that was a redefining moment for me. Whether that was a crisis or not, well, that's up to everybody to determine.
Right. And I hadn't been playing my flute for almost a decade and then got the bug again. That was 20 years ago, and I haven't looked back ever since.
Right. Well, we both felt we were moving in the right direction. It was difficult for some family and friends to understand. Relationships were affected, tears were shed, and growth was finally allowed.
The biggest advantage is that we both felt we were doing something and freed ourselves from a life of potential regret. I found that it was better to stop denying who I was and finally become the person I always wanted to be.
It can be a hard battle, and it's a battle that I think we've shared with fellow musicians who've walked that same path. And I think we would all agree that it was definitely a fight worth having.
We were so fortunate this week to have a guest who exemplifies making life changes as necessary.
This is our very interesting interview with Marsha Lowe. Well, one of the nice things about the Melalani Cafe is that we have people who come every week and always support us. And we're so happy that this lady found us. It's Marsha.
Be serious.
Hello.
Sorry. Hi, Marsha. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Real good.
So, what have you been doing during the pandemic? Have any projects or anything? And what are your plans as people are reemerging now that we're becoming vaccinated?
Yeah, that's very exciting. Over the past year, I guess it was mostly music that I was doing. I was writing another book. It's a semi-autobiographical novel. But to tell you the truth, I hardly worked on that at all. I've been mostly doing music, like writing songs, playing guitar, taking lessons, doing open mics like the great Melanie open mic that you guys do such a great job hosting. And open circles and songwriter circles and some Zoom performances. And the last one was at PASA a few weeks ago where I was a co-headliner. That was really cool. And, Charles Nolan and I are hoping to do a concert outside at Melanie. Right. Hopefully before it gets too hot, maybe end of the spring, early summer.
But it really does bring up the thing that I think a lot of us didn't expect was that the pandemic was going to take away opportunities but create new ones at the same time.
Absolutely. And people from other places can be on an open mic, like our two friends from Massachusetts. And
that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And we would have never started the Rusty and Jan show. It would have been a nice idea that we would have said, oh, we should do that someday.
Someday when we have time.
Yeah. And so it wouldn't have happened, but now here we are.
Yeah. Awesome.
So we met you at Melanie Cafe about 3 years ago. What made you stumble into that place?
Well, before that, I had been doing a lot of choral music with community choral groups, and also doing some open circles. And one of the attendees at one of them asked me if I had heard of Melanie and the open mic, and asked me if I'd be interested in playing, attending it. And I said, yeah, and called and found out the day and time and came. With quite a bit of trepidation, actually, because I'm so used to singing only in large groups, never solo. But you guys were so welcoming and supportive, and
we hear that so much that people come with trepidation. We've watched people grow as they've come to Melanie. So, and you're one of them.
And I understand as someone who's been playing this type of gig for 50 years. I know how people feel, especially you step into a place and you don't know anybody and you want to get up on that stage. Yeah.
I didn't know a soul.
You didn't know anybody. That's amazing.
I mean, I have friends who went, and I think I even might have been once or twice with friends, to eat there. But that night I came, I didn't recognize anybody that I knew. So it was, daunting.
You're one of the
headliners.
Yeah, well, not only that, but you're one of our biggest supporters. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys are great, and you're all the support.
I think my point being actually is, I'm very welcoming if anybody comes in, and I like the fact that we're assistive to disabled and young and old and totally open in that respect, because that's how we develop our community.
It's a true community that way, yes.
True community, it really is.
Absolutely.
And we are very proud, that you are part of that, to say the very least.
Great. But it seems like from our conversations that you have had a very interesting past.
Oh, yes, lots of rumors about you.
Some of them started by you, but anyway, Can you tell us about that?
When I was a student at the University of Pennsylvania, this yogi came to give a talk, and from an Indian-based yoga organization named Ananda Marga, and I went to the talk. I learned meditation, and a few years later, I went to India to become a full-time yoga and meditation teacher, and spent the next 18 years traveling different countries, teaching yoga, meditation, doing social service projects, and as a nun. And I was what I call a yogic nun, all in orange, like a nun, like a nun's habit, but orange. So you really saw me coming.
Well, that's Rusty's favorite color, so.
Yeah, it works for me. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You have to get me your tailor.
So, I had a lot of adventures. The first place I went was Cairo. I was sent there. And not long after that, some months later, the Egyptians deported me and this other yoga teacher, a young Filipino guy, we were there together, not together, but you know what I mean, together teaching.
Right, we know.
And they deported us. That's a very long story as to why that happened. But I went, then I was in Israel, I was in Turkey, I was in Iran when the Shah was being overthrown. Then I was in Australia, Fiji, and then finally, like in Eastern Europe, when the countries like Poland and Russia, when communism was collapsing, the Berlin Wall came down, that whole time.
So when did you come back?
1992.
Oh,
Almost.
Oh, yeah, that's about right. That's
30
about
years.
when that all happened.
Yeah.
So, oh wow, I don't think I realized just how much traveling you did.
So
Yeah, on the move constantly.
you were very well entrenched in that lifestyle, and then one day you said, "Well, wait a minute, I don't want to do this anymore."
Yeah, well,
To redefine your
yeah.
life in a way. Well,
Yeah.
what brought that on?
I gradually became disillusioned. There were a lot of things about the cold and things that you had to do, and there was sexism. There was a lot of sexism, as you can imagine, in an organization based in India where there's
place
still
where-
so much patriarchy and sexism.
Is there a place we don't have sexism?
Well,
Yeah, that's a good question. But in India, it's especially entrenched, even today. And this is back in the 70s, 80s,
right.
So,
So you became disillusioned, and then you decided you had enough, and you came back here.
yeah, I came back here and, I wrote the book about it, a memoir called The Orange Robe, where I talk about the whole journey from the beginning to the end, how I became disillusioned.
We're
And
gonna have to get this book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So can we buy it on Amazon? Where would we find that?
well, you can get it on Amazon and also barnesandnoble.com, both as a paperback and as an ebook. If you read ebooks, it's only like $3.99. However, if you want the printed copy, there's a great place called bookshop.com. It's a wonderful, they ship books out just in a cardboard, so it's recyclable, and they support local bookstores. So they're a great place to get the book if you want the print copy. And also I have copies that I can sell. It's less expensive if you buy it direct from me, and you can get my autograph. So when I become famous one day, you'll have my autograph.
I was just gonna ask that. Can we get it autographed if we buy it from you?
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
What is an autograph copy going for? I don't know. Do I have any cash?
Can you hand cash through Zoom?
What was that?
I'm saying you can give me the cash. One day we'll be able to figure out how to transfer
Yeah,
food
right.
and money.
I know.
I was going to say that maybe you should bring a couple books down to the Melalani Cafe.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
maybe even put up a flyer how people can get it online. That's available there as we begin to reopen again.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, how about a song?
Okay, so the first of the song is called Songbird's Lament, and I wrote it when I saw a few years ago that far fewer songbirds were coming to my feeders, like in late summer, early fall, and I was wondering about that, and then I read about the big decline in songbirds across all of North America. There are so many reasons: climate change, loss of habitat, the use of pesticides, many things. And so I decided, I wrote a song, and it's kind of imagining what songbirds would say to us if they could speak. So it's called Songbird's Lament. You gaze out the window to your feeders so full, though you topped them off at least 2 weeks ago. You scratch your head and wonder aloud, where are all the birds? Where are all the birds? Then all in a rush it comes to you now. So few feathered friends on the wing, the eerie silence of past several days. Why haven't you heard any birds sing? But you say it's far too early for them to fly south. How how can this be? Oh, where are all the birds? Where are all the birds? Songbirds lament. Songbirds lament. I may be a chickadee, a cardinal, a sparrow, wren. Our numbers are dwindling, our future looks dim. Songbirds lament. What did you think would come of it when you bulldozed the trees, crushed our homes and slaughtered our chicks? Built your concrete nests full of dangerous glass, and round them planted nothing but grass. Then wage war in those fields with your poisonous brews on every living thing that crawled there or grew. How dare you wonder now? Where are all the birds? Oh, where are all the birds? Songbirds lament. Songbirds lament. I may be a chickadee, a cardinal, a sparrow, wren. Our numbers are dwindling, our future looks dim. Songbirds lament. It may be too late, but we beg of you, please, rip out your lawns and plant native flowers and trees. Put out some water, a nesting box or two, and maybe, God willing, you'll return and sing once more for you. Return and sing for you. Songbirds lament. Songbirds lament. I may be a chickadee, a cardinal, a sparrow, wren. Our numbers are dwindling, our future looks dim. Songbirds lament. Songbirds lament. Songbirds lament.
Woo! Very nice.
Thank you.
So tell us more about your book,
The Orange Robe.
The Orange Robe. Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about where they could find it
Yeah.
already.
Right. Well, basically, it kind of, the title kind of sums up the whole journey because as a young person at the time, you know, in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I really wanted to have a different identity. I just, you know, I didn't like being a Jewish girl from the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I, you know, that, you know, whatever reason, I think it was some internalized anti-Semitism actually, but anyway, kind of came from a kind of dysfunctional family, and I was very idealistic, and I came across this organization that seemed wonderful because the motto was self-realization and service to humanity. So it was unlike other social, like yoga groups, where you just kind of meditate and you don't think about the world. I liked this. I thought it sounded wonderful. So I decided to become what we called a Didi. That's sister in Bengali or Hindi. And so I was very excited when I put on my robes for the first time. I felt I'm a new person. I got a new name, spiritual name, and I was a new person. And then I was very happy about wearing this uniform and doing the work. And gradually I became disillusioned with some of the the people, the in charges, the sexism, and other things we were made to do, like smuggling.
Oh, wow. Really?
I won't go into detail, but things like smuggling, things like, getting new passports because we were blacklisted in India. And if you wanted to get in, you had to have a new name. I changed my name twice. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so things like that. And gradually I became disillusioned. Also, wearing a uniform with several layers on it in places like Cairo or India was stifling.
I bet.
But the guru wanted us to wear this, which was also in the end very sexist, if you think about it. To suffer, we had to suffer wearing these suffocating robes. And then I know I wanted, it became a symbol of oppression to me, and I really wanted to leave. So, finally I did leave. And I brought with me one uniform, which I wish I had saved because then I could wear it at Halloween and answer the door in my uniform. But after a few years, I threw it away.
It would be great. I can only imagine what your family must have thought when that was all
Oh
happening.
yeah, that was a whole nother, yeah, it's a sad part of it. But
I think it's
and
important though to recognize because I was there, back then in those years, and the hippies, and there were cults, there were communes, there were people who were dropping out of society, and they would use the term dropping out, and it's exactly what you did.
yeah, yeah, I just wanted to, and also the American culture very individualistic. Unfortunately,
And
it's
the
still that
Vietnam
way, or
War,
even worse,
right?
and very materialistic. I was looking for something else, but I really do think that one thing that influenced me a lot in the interest in Zen Buddhism and yoga and everything was really the Beatles. With Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I was a big Beatles freak.
Wow.
Ever
I went
since they
along
appeared
there.
on the Ed Sullivan Show, I was 14, so I was like the perfect age
Right.
for becoming a Beatles freak. So I think the fact that they got into that and, George with the sitar and everything,
Sure.
that kind of sparked my interest. And so I could blame it on the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's George's
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah, it's all his fault.
But I think to my point, you and I can remember when you would walk down the boardwalk and there would be sitar music playing and a lot of people would be dressed in robes. So
Yeah.
while it may seem extreme to people in our society today, it was pretty well accepted.
Yeah, there were
Oh,
so
sure.
many. There was Guru Maharaji. There were all these
Yeah,
different groups.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mayor Baba. Yeah.
Right. So speaking of the Beatles, I would imagine these are one of your influences. Which artists do you feel influenced you the most?
Yeah, well, coming of age in the late 60s, early 70s, there's just so much great music. And of course, the Beatles were my favorite, but I also love the Moody Blues and Simon and Garfunkel and Cat Stevens and, Peter, Paul, and Mary. But I guess the
Favorites,
two,
yeah.
two most influential to me are female artists, Joni Mitchell and Carole King. I feel like influencing me as a singer and also as a songwriter.
Was there anybody more popular as a female singer back when you were a teenager back then than the two of them?
Yeah,
Maybe
back,
like Roger.
there were, were there the Supremes and everything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Aretha,
Sure.
I love them, but I can't really think of one, because really back then a lot of the bands were men, but there was Joni Mitchell, there was Judy Collins, and Carole King, but back then, well, when she came out with Tapestry, that was really right after I graduated. That just blew my mind.
A
That
lot of people
album.
don't realize that that was the number one selling album of all time
Wow.
until Thriller.
When I was a
Wow.
teenager.
And well deserved. Yeah, yeah. So you being so young, you missed all that. I mean, you haven't now,
You
but
did.
it was really amazing growing up at that time. There's just so much
But what
fabulous stuff going
people
on.
don't realize is that even though I wasn't around yet when they were first coming out, they were around. Like I was a little kid when their stuff was still being played. Carole
Yeah.
King and the Beatles and Cat Stevens, and I remember just constantly hearing that stuff even as a child. So you could even say they were an influence for me. They weren't when I was a teenager. They weren't so big when things like I'm sorry, Wham and Boy George and that sort of thing were coming
Yeah.
out. That was
Yeah.
kind of like sadly my influences.
But and I think what you're saying here, Marsha, that you don't understand was that the summer of '69 and that whole thing, there was so
Yeah.
much good music that we were just, it was coming at us from everywhere and it was all so good.
So great. Jimi
And it
Hendrix.
definitely
Yeah.
changed music forever. It really did.
It was really amazing. But maybe as a young kid hearing that had a big influence because when you're young, things you hear
Those
impact you
songs
a
have been around
lot.
my whole life.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
a time before
Yeah.
those songs. So, you
It,
know,
when we,
My niece and nephew loved the Beatles, and when they heard, like one time, now they're older, like they're both 30 something, but when they were kids, I told them at one point, I saw the Beatles, and it was almost like, they almost like touched my feet, like they looked at me, oh, you saw the Beatles. So, a lot of,
well,
they love the Beatles, and their music is so great that it'll,
yeah,
I think, forever.
yeah. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
so
So now there's no question that you're a very sensitive and caring writer, and you write from the heart about what you think is wrong and unjust, and social activism is definitely a part of what you talk about. Um, why? What brought all that on?
Yeah, well, I guess the two, things in my writing are social activism or social justice and nature or environment, and which, of course, the environmental issues and social justice are linked. But I think I was always very conscious of those issues. I was an anti-war activist as a student, and going to the demonstrations against the Vietnam War, and just always, of course, loved nature too. And I wrote songs when I was in the cult that I have revised because they have reference to guru and all that kind of stuff. But they have a lot of nature themes to them. So those kind of are my two biggest loves or things that I express through music. And I think it's so empowering because issues seem overwhelming. That if you can write songs that can maybe help people to change and do something about climate change or the decline of bird species or whatever.
right away.
It feels empowering because it's such a huge problem, but writing songs about it feels so empowering.
Do you think that your background as part of that cult? Do you think that was kind of all in the same? Do you think that was an influence in your songwriting, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, I think, as part of my environmental ethic comes from the philosophy of the guru, which was called neo-humanism, which is an idea that all creatures are important and not just being humanistic, but extending that care to all creatures. So in that way, he had some good ideas. um,
For life in general.
but so that kind of a view, and I always loved animals, and so that kind of, I think my environmentalism that influenced it. Yeah, and then being in different countries and being in some beautiful environments like Fiji and other beautiful places, where it inspired me to write songs that had nature themes in them.
I remember back in the day where songwriting was about ending the Vietnam War or, equal rights amendment or issues like that. But we're older now, and issues are different in our lives than they had been. And I know the song that we had talked about you doing this kind of represents an activist addressing some of the issues about growing older.
Right, that's
So,
true.
why don't you play another one?
Okay, so this is a song that I dedicate to older women everywhere because women of a certain age have to deal with not only sexism but ageism. Whereas guys, they just have to deal with ageism. And I was reading somewhere where I read an article recently where ageism is the last allowable ism, where every other ism people speak out against. Ageism, even activists sometimes like denigrate older people. So, but older women have to deal with that and sexism. So it's like a double whammy. So this is Invisibility and dedicated to women of a certain age everywhere. Just because my hair is gray and my face more wrinkled now, and I can't hide my chicken neck behind my scarf so well, and I can't move as lightly as when I was a babe. It's not as if I'm standing here with one foot in the grave. So don't stare past me as if I am not there. Don't shout at me as if I cannot hear. And don't be shocked if I take off my top to see if it's a fact. I've developed invisibility, 'cause that's just how you act. Tell me, how is it that men get such a break? They're 60 and 70 and think they still look great. People say their gray hair just makes them look distinguished, while all my older friends and me, it makes us look extinguished. So don't stare past me as if I'm not there. Don't shout at me as if I cannot hear. And don't be shocked if I take off my top to see if it's a fact. I've developed invisibility, 'cause that's just how you act. Well, I'm not about to wait around for attitudes to shift. Instead, I'll regard my newfound power as a gift. I'll be sure to use it on my next shopping trip. Take jeans and shoes and earrings and never pay a dime. 'Cause when you're invisible, no one pays you any mind. So don't stare past me as if I am not there. Don't shout at me as if I cannot hear. And don't be shocked if I take off my top to see if it's a fact. I've developed invisibility, 'cause that's just how you act. Think I'll embrace my invisibility, 'cause that's really where it's at.
Yay! Lovely, lovely.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Well, it was great seeing you.
Because you're not.
I finally became visible.
There we go. Yes, and you're becoming more visible every day in this community, and I know that we're all so lucky to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. You guys are so sweet.
Oh, we know.
Thank
Yeah.
And it's so great to be part of it. It really is.
Before we let you go, do you have any shows coming up, or is there? Do you have a website or recordings or anything like that?
I don't, I really have to get around to do it. I do have a website, but I just sometimes post, my latest music things there, but I'm revising it.
What's your website?
Right now. MarshaGuyBoff.com. Guyboff is my maiden name, but I use it as a middle name.
Okay.
So, but anyway, the only thing I have coming up is hopefully with Charles, that we'll get a date and practice and
I
do
will get
that.
around to scheduling you.
Other than that, just continue with all the great open mics with you guys and other ones, and on song circles, and continue to write songs. That's what I've been inspired to, do, and I hopefully will continue doing that. So, do another song. It seems like I'm doing one once a month, which I'm not like churning them out like some people, but as long as I do once a month, I'm happy.
That'll keep you regular.
Yeah. Got to keep regular. When you get older, you got to, regularity is important.
Absolutely.
Oh my.
Oh
Thank
gosh.
you so much, Marsha,
Thank you so much, Marsha.
for being our guest today.
Oh, it's been an honor and a treat.
All right. Thank
All
you.
righty.
Episode 14 has been another mind-blowing revelation about our community.
And once again, we have seen how one of our members chose to redefine her life.
It's amazing how many times that seems to present itself.
Seems like it happens in this musical community more than you would expect.
Absolutely.
Next week, we're really excited to have Lisa Jeanette as our guest.
And what an example of what can be accomplished with hard work and talent.
And choosing a path that defines you. I'm looking forward to hearing selections from her new CD, Jellyfish on the Moon.
It's a great album.
Speaking of songs, here's one that I wrote at a time when I felt that I had achieved my redefinition and survived my midlife crisis. It's simply called Rusty. Rusty's playing tonight. Might be wrong, might be right. You might say I look a fright, but Rusty's playing tonight. Rusty's singing tonight. La 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 la. Rusty's singing tonight. Ha ha ha. Might sing flat. How about that? But Rusty's singing tonight. Rusty's screaming tonight. Crack that voice tonight. It's not just to play. I got something to say. That's why Rusty's screaming tonight. Rusty lives tonight. Rusty lives tonight. Well, I came through because of you. Well, Rusty's singing tonight. Rusty's playing tonight. Rusty thanks you tonight.